Imagine stepping onto a city made of solid light, where every surface hums with energy that responds to your emotions. The air tastes like ozone and metal, and your guide warns you not to step off the path, or you'll plummet into crystal gardens below. That was my first moment on Valdora, and it only got weirder from there. The first thing that hits you is the sound, not through your ears exactly. This hum vibrates right through your teeth, a steady pulse that says you're somewhere physics forgot to read the rulebook. I stepped through that shimmering archway and the world under my boots wasn't ground anymore. It was light, solid light, glowing and translucent, floating over gardens of crystalline structures so far down they looked like shattered glass. Counselor Vex was already waiting, all polished silver skin and patience. "Stay on the path, Ambassador," he said. No smile. "Quantum stabilizers don't recognize human biosignatures. Step off and, well, it will be an inelegant descent." The air hit my lungs next. Ozone, sure, like right after a thunderstorm back home, but mixed with something else, a metallic sweetness like licking a battery dipped in honey. Not unpleasant, just impossible. With every breath you taste the future. You realize pretty quick this isn't just a building. The floor under your feet responds. When I got nervous, and yeah, walking on glowing air over a drop that would splatter me tends to do that, the light would flicker, pulsing, like a heartbeat, Vex noticed. The palace reads emotional states. Anxiety confuses the architecture. Every surface hummed with that same energy. Walls, ceilings, the paths themselves, they weren't static. They breathed, shifted, adjusted. If you felt calm, the path glowed steady. If you panicked, it might narrow. I learned fast. This wasn't a diplomatic visit. It was a high-stakes balancing act where the building itself was judging you. I took one slow step, then another. The path held, for now. My mind kept flashing to the drop. Those crystal spires down there, beautiful and sharp. One misstep. One moment of doubt. The wonder of it all lasted about 3 seconds before survival instinct kicked in. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a test. And the test had already started. Vex moved ahead, his step sure. The floor didn't flicker for him. Of course it didn't. I followed, keeping my breathing even, projecting calm like my life depended on it. Because it did. Every diplomat trains for tough talks. No one trains for a building that might drop you if you have a bad thought. So you walk, and you breathe, and you try not to look down. The hum stays in your teeth, a constant reminder. You're not in Kansas anymore. Hell, you're not even in the same dimension. Welcome to Valdora. Try not to fall. Then came the wardrobe. The suit they gave me wasn't cloth. It flowed like liquid mercury across my skin, cold at first, then warming to match my body temperature. It never stayed still. The material kept breaking apart and reforming in tiny, shimmering motions, like a living thing constantly adjusting itself. You'd be in the middle of trying to look diplomatic and suddenly feel a gentle pressure at the base of your neck. The suit was massaging your shoulders. It didn't ask. It just decided you needed it. During my first formal introduction to the Valdoran delegation, right as I was about to speak, the collar tightened slightly. Not a choke, more like a firm, reassuring grip. The fabric adjusted its texture, going from smooth to something like brushed silk, then back again. It felt like the clothing itself was trying to keep me calm, or maybe it was trying to calm itself down. Hard to tell. Counselor Vex noticed my unease. He explained it with that same patient tone. The nanotextiles monitor and promote well-being. They adjust temperature, provide subtle pressure therapy, even release calming agents through the skin. It is considered impolite to wear dead fabric here. My own Earth-made clothes had caused a minor scene earlier. The palace systems couldn't process them. Thin, shimmering silver tendrils had detached from the walls and followed me around for an hour, trying to absorb the inert organic matter. Vex had to call them off. Apparently wearing static clothing was like carrying around a corpse, a fashion corpse, so I wore their living suit. And it wore me. It learned my stress points. If I clenched my jaw during a tense moment, the shoulders would knead a little deeper. If my hands got cold, the sleeves would generate a soft heat. It was intimate in a way that felt invasive, like having a very attentive, very silent therapist glued to your skin at all times. There's no privacy with clothing that feels your pulse and adjusts to your mood. It knew when I was nervous before I did. It knew when I was tired. It was like being dressed by a worried mother who never spoke, just acted. I'd catch my reflection in the crystalline walls. a man in a shifting silver skin that never looked the same way twice. I fought it at first. Tried to stand stiffly to resist the massages, to ignore the constant subtle changes. It was a losing battle. The suit was smarter than I was about my own body. After a while you give in. The pride goes. You accept that your clothes are now part of the diplomatic team. A very hands-on, literally hands-on member. The comfort was undeniable. Strange but undeniable. I'd never been so physically at ease while being so mentally on edge. The suit kept me at the perfect temperature, eased muscle tension I didn't know I had, and generally made my body feel like it was on a permanent vacation. My mind was running a marathon, but my shoulders had never been so relaxed. It was a weird trade. Dignity for comfort. On Valdora, that seemed to be the going rate. Just when you think you've adapted to the living clothes and the humming floors, they take you to decontamination. You don't walk in. The floor simply dissolves beneath you and you drop into a chamber of pure white light. No door, no controls. Just light so bright it feels solid. A calm, genderless voice says, "Removal of all coverings required for optimal cleansing." Not a request. A statement of fact, so you stand there. The liquid metal suit flows off your body like mercury rolling downhill, pooling on the floor before vanishing into it. You're just there, exposed. The light doesn't feel warm or cold. It just is. It moves over your skin in slow waves from head to foot, then back up. You can feel it. Not like a scanner beam. Like being read. Every centimeter. Inside and out. The voice returns. Scan complete. Biomass structure. Human variant 7C. Microbial load. 2.3 standard units above Valderan mean. Decontamination optimal. There's a pause. The light intensifies for a second. A pulse that tingles deep in your bones. Post-cleanse analysis. 47% cleaner than human baseline standard. Acceptable. 47%. Not 50. Not much cleaner. 47. Precise, humiliating. You're standing there naked under a light that just told the entire room, or whatever this is, that you were almost half again dirtier than you should be. Then it gets worse. There's no towel, no robe. No here, cover up. The light fades. From the floor, the liquid metal suit flows back up your legs, reforming around you. Cold at first, then warm. It feels different now. Lighter. As if it's been cleaned too. Or maybe it's just my imagination. Probably not. The Valderans waiting outside don't even look at you. To them, this is normal. Routine. Like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. They don't see the indignity. They see maintenance. Necessary upkeep. Vex gave me a nod. Efficient, yes. The system eliminates 99.98% of external pathogens and recalibrates your personal nanotextiles. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. That's when it hits you. Privacy here isn't about being unseen. It's about irrelevance. They don't care about your nakedness. They care about your cleanliness, your health, your functionality. The technology doesn't judge you. It just cares in the most invasive clinical way possible. It wants you optimal. It wants you efficient. Your modesty is just background noise. You walk out of that room feeling like you've been stripped down to your raw data, your biomass structure, your microbial load, your cleanliness percentage. The suit feels different on your skin now, not just clothing. Part of the system, a system that just looked inside you and told you how dirty you were, and then made you better, whether you wanted it or not. They don't have locks on doors here. They don't have curtains. Why would they? The system sees everything anyway. It cleans everything. It maintains everything. You're not a person with private parts. You're a biological unit that requires periodic servicing, and the servicing is thorough. The floors told no lies. They glowed underfoot, a soft bioluminescent blue that shifted with every step. At first you think it's pretty. Then you realize it's reading you. That blue? Calm, steady, but let a stray anxious thought cross your mind. Worry about the meeting, a memory of that drop beneath the pathway, and the light flickers. A ripple of orange cuts through the blue, then red, a stark pulsing red right where you're standing. No hiding it. Everyone sees. The palace didn't just see your mood. It echoed it. Walk down a corridor feeling uncertain, and the walls would throw back a faint whispering sound of your own doubts. Not your voice. The sound of hesitation itself. A low hum that seemed to mock you. I'd stop, try to calm down, and the sound would fade. Take a step while nervous, and it returned. A constant, audible feedback loop of my own insecurity. Counselor Vex watched this happen more than once. He didn't laugh, just offered a dry observation. The palace architecture is enthusiastic, like a young domestic creature. It wishes to interact. It does not yet understand human subtleties. An enthusiastic, untrained dog. That was his comparison. A big, powerful psychic dog that reads your emotions and then barks them back at you in light and sound. The pathways themselves reacted. Feel a spike of fear and the glowing road might narrow. Just a little. Enough to make you aware of the edges. Enough to make you look down. Which, of course, makes the fear worse. A perfect, miserable cycle. My diplomatic training covered hostile negotiations, cultural misunderstandings, even emergency protocols. Nobody ever mentioned how to hide your feelings from the floor. So you learn. Fast. You learn to project calm even when your mind is screaming. You learn to breathe slow. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Fake a sense of peace you absolutely do not feel. It's exhausting. Every corridor becomes a performance. Every room a stage where your inner state is the main attraction. Broadcast in high-definition color for anyone to read. The strange part? The palace learned too. It adapted. After a few days, the red flashes came less often. The echoes softened. It started to recognize my particular brand of human anxiety. It didn't stop reacting, it just reacted differently. A gentle pulse of orange instead of a violent red. A quiet hum instead of a mocking whisper. It was figuring me out. In the end, the floor became the most honest thing in that place. It couldn't be fooled by a smile or a confident tone. It went straight to the source. That glow under your feet was the truth, plain and simple. No filter, no diplomacy. You stand there trying to look like an ambassador, and the ground beneath you is shouting your real feelings to the world. It's brutal. And weirdly, you start to respect it. There's no lying to the architecture. So you stop trying to lie to yourself. Then I read a Valderan recipe and broke the weather inside the palace. Their writing doesn't sit on pages. It floats in the air, three-dimensional clusters of light and shape that hover just within reach. This one was a cooking instruction, or so Vex said. Looked more like a captured nebula to me. Tiny glowing particles swirled in complex patterns, shifting as you watched. No words, just meaning, hanging there. I tried to read it the only way I knew how. Left to right, top to bottom. A linear path through a nonlinear thing. Big mistake. My brain, trained on sentences and paragraphs, latched onto one thread of meaning and pulled. The cluster pulsed, brightened. Then the whole thing unraveled. The air in the room flickered. Like a bad connection, the steady hum of the palace stuttered. Above us, the ceiling, which had been a calm, soft glow, rippled. Dark clouds formed out of nowhere. Not water vapor. Electrostatic shapes crackling with energy. They swirled, angry and purple, right over our heads. A low rumble vibrated through the floor. I froze. The recipe cluster was still spinning wildly, throwing off sparks of light. Vex just stood there watching the storm gather. No panic, no surprise. He gave me a dry look. Perhaps, he said, we should move to the transportation courtyard. Like I'd spilled a drink, not summoned a thunderhead inside a building. The incident clarified something important. Thought shapes reality here, not metaphorically. Literally. My human mind, trying to force order on their fluid language, had created chaos. A probability cascade, Vex called it later. My linear thinking introduced instability. The system tried to compensate. The weather was the result. I learned to read differently after that. Not word by word. Whole meaning at once. Let the shapes settle in your mind without forcing them into lines. It's like learning to see without focusing. You relax your eyes and let the image come to you. Do that and the clusters make sense. Try to control it and you get indoor lightning. The funny part, Vex seemed almost impressed. Not by my control, by the chaos. He said human minds were creative, unpredictable. We see possibilities they don't. Our mistakes were interesting to them. A flaw in our thinking became a feature in their environment. So I broke the weather with a soup recipe, not my finest diplomatic moment. But it taught me more about Valdora than a week of meetings. Here, a thought isn't just a thought. It's a tool, a weapon, a building block. And if you're not careful, it's also a storm cloud right over your head. You learn to mind your thoughts, not just for privacy, for everyone's safety. The first transport shuttle I saw had no controls. No steering column, no console, no buttons. Just a smooth, open cockpit and a seat that looked grown rather than built. You don't drive these things. You think at them. And they listen. Vex gestured toward it. Simply hold your destination in mind. The vehicle will respond. Simple for him. My mind doesn't hold anything that neatly. I sat down. The seat molded to my shape, firm but comfortable. I pictured the main spire where we were headed. Clear image, solid. Then my brain, being what it is, threw in a side thought. What if we crash? The shuttle jerked left. Hard. We veered toward a cluster of crystal spires that looked as sharp as they were beautiful. Close enough to see the light fracture through their edges. My heart hammered. The shuttle responded to that too, lurching downward as panic became a command. Down. Away. Now. Vex didn't flinch. Your anxiety is providing navigation input, he said, perfectly calm. The system interprets strong emotion as intention. Fear suggests evasion, hence the dive. Hence the dive. Right. My fear was steering us straight toward a very pointy end. Valderans travel like they meditate, total focus, pure calm intention. Their minds are still pools. Mine is a scattering of debris in a solar wind. Every stray worry, every random memory, every did I leave the stove on impulse becomes a course correction. I was trying to hold a single thought and my brain kept offering alternatives. What about that lower platform? Remember that drop? Hey look, a weird bird. It was exhausting. Mental discipline wasn't something I'd ever needed behind a wheel. You turn the wheel, you go. Here you have to police your own thoughts. No daydreaming. No anxiety. No curiosity. Just a single clear, unwavering image of where you want to be. The shuttle becomes an extension of your will. And my will was shaky. I had to learn. Fast, breathe in. Hold the image. Breathe out. Let go of everything else. It felt like trying to balance on a tightrope inside my own head. One stray thought and we were veering off course. The shuttle responded to the tiniest flickers. A moment of doubt became a slight drift. A spike of frustration made the engines whine. But then something shifted. My chaotic thinking, the same thing that nearly crashed us, started to become useful. I wasn't just holding one destination. I was holding possibilities. Alternate routes, contingencies. The shuttle began to anticipate. It didn't just go where I pointed it. It flowed, weaved, found paths I hadn't consciously seen. What felt like a flaw, a mind that won't stay still, became an asset. The shuttle started moving with a fluidity that surprised even Vex. Not just point A to point B, it was dancing. Reacting to threats before they were threats. Adjusting to opportunities I only half perceived. My scattered thoughts became a strategic advantage. The vehicle wasn't just reading my intention. It was reading my creativity. I stopped trying to be Valderan calm. I started thinking like a human, messy, adaptive, full of ideas. The shuttle loved it. We stopped nearly crashing and started flying in a way they hadn't seen. Turns out a mind that throws out random debris can also chart a path through it. You just have to stop fighting the chaos and start using it. You sit down to eat and the plate in front of you isn't food. It's potential. A shimmering, shifting mass that looks more like captured light than anything you'd put in your mouth. You take a bite. It tastes like roasted nuts, maybe a hint of spice. You chew. The texture changes, becomes creamier. The flavor shifts toward citrus. You swallow. The next bite from the exact same spot on the plate tastes of smoked meat and earth. The color of the food darkens from gold to a deep amber. Nothing stays the same. Every meal is a guess. You never know what you're getting. The nano-infused cuisine reads your body's needs, your mood, even your subconscious cravings. It adapts. You might be stressed and the food becomes calming, releasing compounds that ease tension. You might need energy and it turns sharp, bright, almost electric on the tongue. Your human palate, built for consistency, rebels. You crave a simple, steady flavor. You don't get it. The kitchen staff found it amusing. They'd watch from the archways, their silver faces expressionless but their postures leaning in, waiting for the human to react. I'd take a bite and my face would do something involuntary. A twitch, a blink, a slow surprise. They'd exchange glances. No laughter, but a subtle shift in the light around them. Their version of a chuckle. They called my confusion charming. I called it digestive roulette. It was uncomfortable. Not just the taste. The lack of control. On Earth, food is a known quantity. You order steak, you get steak. Here you order nourishment and get a sensory roller coaster that you didn't sign up for. I spent the first few meals trying to anticipate the changes. To brace for them. It was useless. The transformation was total and unpredictable. So I stopped fighting it. I leaned into the weird. Instead of bracing for the next flavor shift, I started welcoming it. treated each bite like a surprise gift. Some were terrible, a mouthful that tasted like cold metal and static. Others were incredible. A burst of flavor so perfect it felt like the food had read my soul. I stopped seeing it as a meal and started seeing it as an experience. An adventure, however uncomfortable. That shift changed everything. The kitchen staff noticed. My reactions went from confused to curious. I'd take a bite, pause, and really consider it, nod, sometimes smile. They stopped watching with amusement and started watching with interest. One of the senior preparers, a tall Valdoran with intricate light patterns swirling on his skin, approached me after a meal. "You adapt," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. A compliment. The weirdest meals became my best openings for real talk. I'd be sitting with a junior ambassador, our plates shifting and swirling between us, and instead of discussing trade agreements, we'd discuss the food. What my last bite tasted like. What his did. It was a shared bizarre experience. A common ground built on absolute uncertainty. You can't be formal when your dinner is turning into a different animal with every mouthful. It breaks down barriers, forces honesty. You're both just passengers on the same wild ride. Diplomacy over a shifting plate isn't about deals. It's about trust. And sometimes it tastes like smoked meat and lightning. Then came the throne room. Queen Alara didn't sit on a throne so much as she occupied a convergence of light, a focal point where the palace's energy seemed to gather and bow. Her presence wasn't announced. It was felt. A shift in the air, a deepening of the hum in the floor. She watched me approach, her eyes like polished obsidian taking measure. No smile, no nod, just assessment. The meeting should have been simple. Exchange pleasantries, outline mutual interests, standard first contact stuff we'd drilled 100 times. She cut through it in seconds. "Your world fractures itself," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried. No malice, just fact. You divide into nations, factions, ideologies. You fight among yourselves. How can Valdora trust agreements with a species that cannot agree with itself? She wasn't wrong. Earth's history is a mess of shifting alliances and internal conflicts. Governments change. Policies flip. I'd prepared a defense for this. A speech about the strength found in diversity of thought, the innovation that comes from disagreement. It sounded hollow even as I formed the words. She listened, her expression unchanging. The light around her didn't flicker. When I finished, she tilted her head. A small, precise motion. "You are unremarkable," she observed. Not an insult. A classification. Your file suggests you were selected not for excellence, but for adaptability. A quality your kind requires to navigate your own chaos. She saw me not as a distinguished ambassador, but as a tool. A useful one, perhaps, but a tool nonetheless, I could have argued. Listed my qualifications. Defended my career. Instead, I nodded. "They needed a Swiss Army knife," I said. "Lots of little tools. Not the best at any one thing, but passable at many. Good for unexpected situations." I shrugged. This qualifies, the admission hung there. My own side had basically sent a multi-purpose gadget, not a master diplomat. I wasn't the sharpest blade in the drawer. I was the corkscrew and the tiny scissors. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger. In curiosity. The unwavering light around her pulsed just once. A faint ripple. She leaned forward, the light bending with her. "You do not deny your limitations." "Why would I?" I said. "You already know them. Hiding flaws you can't conceal is a waste of energy. We have enough of those back home." A silence stretched, the kind that feels heavy. Then the smallest shift at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile. An acknowledgement. "Your honesty is inefficient," she said, "but not without value." She gestured, and the light between us softened. "Explain this Swiss Army knife concept again." "How does a knife with multiple functions symbolize your diplomatic approach?" The conversation turned. No more grand statements about unity or strength. Just a practical talk about function. About being useful. My lack of impressive qualifications became a point of interest. My adaptability was the skill she wanted to understand. Not our perfect unity. Our messy, inefficient, stubborn ability to keep trying despite ourselves. She didn't want a perfect partner. She wanted a real one. And for the first time, I was giving her that.